Uh, your personality's a problem. You, yeah, I'm talking to you. Your personality's a problem.
I know I'm working on it.
Yeah. You too. Your personality's your problem. Yeah. Your personality's a problem. Your personality's a problem. Your personality's a problem. Your personality's a problem.
And yours?
Let me rephrase that. Your personality's the problem. All of you. So welcome and good evening everyone to this Spiritual Science Loft Talk. Tonight with a talk on elevating your health and well-being with any spiritual science paradigm. Just wanted to start off cueing from the talk 2 weeks ago with the guest speaker Mark Lavelle, addressing us on that ultimate reality that we all face, death. I thought I'd start on a cheery note because death is certainly something that has occupied the focus and the efforts of science for quite some time. It's been a motivator to fight the good fight against the ravages of sickness and disease that disrupt health and well-being, even leading some of us to that sad state of an early and untimely death. And it's amazing how this undertaking of science has had remarkable results in extending the expected lifespan from a mere 30 years before the Industrial Revolution to where in the last 100 years it's jumped from an average of mid-50s to mid-80s. Yeah. Used to be as low as 30 years. How many of you in the audience would not be here listening to this talk? Yeah. Had you lived before the Industrial Revolution. And of course they expect to extend the life expectancy on and on and on. To what length, I don't know. But even that in itself has its repercussions on society in terms of economic, social impacts as we extend the life expectancy in this way. And I bring that up because it's important to note how there is this balance between the health and well-being of the individual and that of the health and well-being of the collective, of the state, you may see. And the tension that exists between the needs of the individual and what the state, what the political sphere is able to accommodate. I bring that up briefly now. We'll look at that more later on as we question just how well our political policies, our political leaders are working for us as individuals to elevate our health and well-being? Or is maybe the elevator going the other way? And then, of course, there is the transhumanist agenda. The transhumanists are a group of scientists that hope that the answer is to one day, in the not too distant future, extend life indefinitely through the merging of machines with biology. Matter of fact, I put out a book here on the piano by Ray Kurzweil, who's associated with Google, and has written many books as a futurist promoting this transhumanist agenda, where they believe it's called the singularity is near, and he believes that it's really within a few years, maybe even less than a decade, that we'll have that possibility of merging machines with human biology. So much so that one day you'll be able to download the data bank of your brain into some chips, and they'll create a little icon of your image for the digital screen, and you'll be able to yak on endlessly enjoying immortality, happily ensconced within the comfort of somebody's laptop or smartphone. You'll be there to keep the smartphone with this transhumanist agenda. And Kurzweil himself seriously believes in this, so much so that he's taking dozens of pills each day so that when he dies, he'll be ready for the deep freeze to preserve his body and then to be resurrected when the technology is there to download his brain into a computer, to immortalize his soul, if you will. Is this possible? I don't know, but we'll be looking at this in a talk I'll be doing in the winter called The Spirituality of Technology. And all these different aspects of how technology is influencing us both negatively and positively in our spiritual development, in our evolution as conscious beings. As for myself, I'm actually, don't know if I'm proud of it, but can claim some right to, as a transhumanist myself. Yes, transhumanist myself, which began when I first contracted Morgellons. I was taken down a very deep, dark rabbit hole that awakened me to many things that I was, up to that point, quite ignorant and naive about. Some of which you may think is in the realm of conspiracy theory when you hear it. But as I've looked into these matters more and more, have really found that there's a lot going on behind closed doors that we in the lay public are not being made privy to. And there's a lot of money being spent by the corporatocracy and the state on things that allows them to exercise power over others. It's Morgellons. Who here has heard of Morgellons? Morgellons is something I got about a half a decade ago when I became infected by a military-made bacteria that had been hybridized with nanotechnology. Of course, a nano is something that's 1,000 times smaller than the hair on your head. And they're a lot more prevalent than what people realize. There's nanotechnology in cosmetics, in candies, and all sorts of things in our society that has kind of just slipped in to the consumer stream of things with not much being said around it. Laws being passed quietly behind closed doors and whatnot, allowing this nanotechnology being put into place, including in the realms of military operations. So this Morgellons is a hybridization of this military-made bacteria with nanobots. The bacteria being the delivery system for these little robots that then began running around my system, gathering up heavy metals in my system, some of which ostensibly have been breathed in through the aerosol spraying that takes place in our atmosphere under the name of managing the weather, geoengineering, and so forth, which does take place, by the way. If you have any question about that, it does take place. In fact, Canada has a Weather Modification Act. You can look it up and see that this indeed is legal. So these nanobots, this Morgellons in my system, began marshalling the heavy metals together to develop wires, living wires, living because of the bacteria, and wires because of the nanobots assembling the heavy metals to create wires. Now, why would anyone want to create something like that that would produce wires in the body? Well, as humans, we all are already something of an antenna. That's our design. We have an antenna. Our chakras are something of an antenna system, transceivers to send and receive information. So we're already halfway there, and with the creation of wires in the system, we become an antenna for signals that can be sent in the airways from facilities like HARP, military facility up hidden away in Alaska. HARP stands for High Frequency Active Oral Research Program, again under the auspices of weather modification and geoengineering. They have several of these around the planet. The Chinese also have these weather modification facilities, but they can also be used for populace modification, beamed on populace to have an effect on people's intelligence, mood, emotions, and so forth. So this is the picture of what Morgellons is ostensibly about. And yeah, it's something I had to beat back with more than a stick. I had to use a magic wand. In some ways I'm thankful, because it has made me the magician that I am. I've actually had a few healing crises in my life. I had one in my early 20s, quite profound. It was not so much of a physical thing, but more of an existential crisis where I pretty much lost everything. I lost the very foundation of my being, my nature, my personality. It was what you might call kind of a botched initiation of self, combination of a few factors, overuse of those recreational substances that we've all known and enjoyed, as well as dabbling in the dark arts, led to really losing the base of my whole being, which took several years of crawling out of that hole and researching and trying to discover what actually builds a healthy, balanced human being, body, soul, and spirit. I had another crisis in my 30s where I came down with chronic fatigue syndrome, which lasted for several years. And if back then you asked me if I'd be doing what I'm doing today, I would go, no way. Because back then I could maybe do one thing a day and then have to crash. Terribly debilitating condition, which again sent me on search to find out what is it on the different levels of our being that we need to do to elevate and sustain good health, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, vibrational health. And then the most recent one with the Morgellons.
How do you spell Morgellons?
Morgellons is M-O-R-G-E-L-L-O-N-S. With that, it set me on a search as far as the Amazon, and working with plant spirit medicine down there, and the most famous of the thousands of medicines, and probably one of the most powerful, the mother medicine, ayahuasca, Mother Ayahuasca, whom I felt I got the call to go and visit down in Peru about a year after the Morgellons struck, and wondering if she would grant me vision of what's behind these sorts of things that are very hard to understand and determine and get information on, including from the powers, the state that should be helping us, the U.S. government, who is finally, after petitioning through Congress, set up a research program on what Morgellons is, and gave it to the U.S. military to do, who took 5 years and a paltry $500,000 to do research with a bunch of hippies in Northern California, and came back and said, oh, this is nothing at all. We don't see anything about wires or something in the system, even though thousands of people have got it. The people we tested have been taking substances and are a bit kooky. So we really think this is a psychiatric condition, and the first line of defense the doctor should take if anybody comes to them claiming to have Morgellons is to give them pills to calm them down and help their mental disorder, because, oh no, there's no Morgellons, there's no such thing. And that's the official report that came up from the Centers for Disease Control and is published on Wikipedia to read. So I had, instead of going to the internet, I went to the Amazon, and Mother Ayahuasca, who did grant me vision of what's behind this, and I'll tell you, it's not a pretty face at all. And some people, well, people have taken ayahuasca can tell you that sometimes the visions are extreme and terrifying. Well, this was extreme and terrifying. But it gave me quite an insight into how so much of what's going on behind the scenes, behind closed doors, is not even a physical thing, but really comes from a spiritual realm, as all things do. Because we know the basis of life is not physical, it's not even soil. The basis of life is spiritual, it's spirit. Soil itself was once spirit. Everything in the crystalline world is an emanation of spirit and has spirit behind it. I'll read a quote from a friend of mine, Rudolf Steiner, who says, "There is nothing material that does not originate from the spirit. What people experience in health and disease stems from their inner attitude, their thoughts and feelings. It is a true proverb, quote, 'What you think today, you will be tomorrow,' close quote. It should be clear to you that if a cultural era has erroneous, negative, depraved thoughts, the next generation and the next era will have to pay the price physically. It is a true saying, quote, 'The sins of the fathers will be visited upon the future generations,' quote. It is not without consequence that the people of the 19th century began to think in a grossly materialistic way, to turn their minds away from everything spiritual. What people thought then will have consequences. And we are not so far removed from the time when peculiar diseases and epidemics will occur in human life. What we call anxiety will occur within half a century in severe measure. Just as plagues and cholera and leprosy in the Middle Ages were rife, so there will be psychic epidemics, diseases of the nervous system in epidemic form. These are the consequences of the fact that people lack a spiritual core in their lives. Where an awareness of the spiritual core as the center of life is present, there people will be healthy under the influence of a healthy, true worldview. Thus the title of the talk tonight, Elevating Health and Well-Being Within a Spiritual Scientific Paradigm. There's something about what's at the periphery, what holds us, that determines our health now and then in future generations. What we hold as a spiritual core. And so the meditation tonight, opening things up, was really to guide everyone to their core as a place that can hold that spiritual light, the way our earth holds the warmth of sunlight, that we can emanate out into ourselves for our own health, into the collective, and into society. Let me back up a little bit to this thing about death. And in my pursuits for health and well-being myself, I've had to look into this question of death and had to face issues around death, the possibility of death. And at this point I asked, well, what's so bad about death? I think there's things worse than death. Living half a life, living with half health, which in fact is the status quo for a lot of people. There's homes and hospitals full of people that are suffering and in misery, living with half health. They're sick and injured, disabled perhaps from some sort of accident, maybe born with a debilitating condition, perhaps that was passed down from the sins of the fathers before them, or the actions of the state, preventing them from living as fully a life as they might prefer. Thankfully, there's more accessibility for those people to come out and participate in culture, but in a lot of cases, it's out of sight, out of mind. And we forget just how much of the world is suffering and living half health, half life. In some cases, it's so bad for people that they actually prefer to pull the plug on their own lives and find death as easier than living half life. Recently, I was walking in Trinity Bellwoods Park here across the street, and I was following up on the homework from a previous talk we had here with Elise Pomerantz. Did a thing on meetup with trees, and she said that after taking us out there and getting us engaged with trees, she said we should go back on our own and continue a relationship with a tree, like pick a tree or two and hang out with it, converse with it. So I've been doing that. I've gone out a few times. I was walking down the street once and I thought, oh, I should go over to the park and connect with the tree. And so I went over and I'd chosen a tree at the very far corner because I thought, okay, yeah, I'll get one on the far side and I'll be here, and it's on the other side. I want to keep this kind of nice psychic conversation going. And I like it because it's one that's right along the border of Queen Street as well, and I like the fact that it's like standing guard. It's got that kind of armoring against the traffic and whatnot. And went over there. Well, the one night I was actually able to connect through the moon. There was a full moon, and I was going to go over. It's like, no, I'm here, and we were just kind of bouncing communication off the moon. Another time I went over and was standing there, and also the tree next to it wanted my attention. It's like, oh, okay, well, all right. So I was, excuse me, I'm, talking to the tree here, and this thing came through. Like this other tree had sort of more masculine quality, and the one that I had initially connected with was this more of a feminine quality. I just stood there, and it was like I was being held in this balance between masculine and feminine, and it was beautiful. It was like they recognized me and were holding me, and that might sound really odd that masculine tree and a feminine tree, but I don't think we're really looking at nature in the fullness of possibility of how we can engage with nature and the spiritual archetypes that are behind that can engage, that can lift us to a mythological level of experiencing life. Because it's not logical to say, one tree's feminine, the other one's masculine. But on a mythological level, on a level of imagination, which is what we're trying to birth as humans, we can engage with the world, we can engage with the nature with a much more imaginative, playful, creative, health and healing manner, which material science it's got a ceiling there. And in some ways that's kind of dumbing us down and making us sick, because we're not engaging fully with the medicine of the world. I mean, the same thing with ayahuasca. Science can't understand why, just taking the vine and mixed with leaves of the chacruna plant and taking it would put you into this other world of experience that, in my opinion, is not fictional or illusory, but just as real as the physical one. So anyways, I was over there and I was looking at the trees, and this was just at the beginning of autumn, looking at the leaves falling on the ground and branches, and all the shedding of things at this time of year. It looks like the trees are dying. It's like, oh no, you're losing your dressing, you're dying, and that. Of course, we're just fooled by that. We're fooled by the Maya, the illusion that the tree's dying, because we know in spring it springs back to life. But it reminded me of an incident this summer where there was a man underneath one of the larger trees, and a branch fell, hit him, and instantly killed him. And I arrived just shortly afterwards, just after the ambulance had arrived, and tragic. It just, I mean, I don't know what sort of karmic issues were behind it, but to be killed by a branch falling, what made it even more tragic is that he was with his wife, who was burying their child, their first child, their first baby. When I arrived, she was kneeling by the man, wailing at the loss, the tragic loss. And it was a bittersweet reminder of how nature moves in this dynamic way. Things don't stand still. And that tree is not to blame. That tree was just doing what a tree does. It sheds part of itself so new life can emerge. There's this death and regeneration happening constantly. Death and regeneration, these are operative words in my talk tonight. Death and regeneration. And the tree was just doing its thing in its regeneration. Life is a story of regeneration. And the question is, how consciously can we carry that ball of regeneration for ourselves personally, on all levels, and then planetarily? Because shed happens. Trees shed their branches and leaves. Furry animals shed their fur coats. Birds molt their feathers. Deer shed their antlers. Snakes shed their skins. Humans in our animal bodies shed skin, hair, nails, snot. Matter of fact, the entire physical body of a human over the course of 7 or 8 years replaces all of its cells and is an entirely different body. So if I knew you before 7 or 8 years ago, you're a different person. So you're a different person than when I knew you 7 or 8. As am I. This shedding, this erosion, we see it in the physical level. Rocks erode. There's a deconstruction that's inherent in the template of life that leads to the new edifying of a new edifice. The regeneration that goes on in my physical body is edifying this edifice of a physical body. So then when it comes to health and well-being, what's the problem? Your personality is the problem. Your personality is the problem. Your personality is the problem too. Everybody here, your personality is the problem. Both personally and planetarily. That's what I've been telling people more and more when we discuss the interstices and complexities of health and well-being. I just cut to the chase and go, all right, you want to check your vitamins? I can douse your vitamins. You know, we can look at what colors you need and what oils might be good for you. But you know what? Let's just save you the $120. Your personality is a problem. Here, I'll give you $1.50. Go get a cup of coffee and some new personality. It's time to regenerate the personality. Actually, let's modify the way I say that. I don't want to offend anybody here. Let's just say that it's not a problem. It's a puzzle. I'm running a spiritual boot camp here right now. And with the group, I'm telling them the premise of doing inner work. It's based on the idea that we live in the realm of riddles. We've been born into the realm of riddles. That's a given. And we all have riddles. You can call them a problem, you can call it a block, you can call it obstruction, but I like to call it a riddle or a puzzle. And just like the indigenous belief that if you get a snake bite from a poisonous snake in some area, the antidote can also be found in the same area through some sort of plant medicine. Problem and solution are together. Same on every level. For us as humans, the riddle and the answer got to come together at some point. And the only place where they come together is not outside of you, they only come together inside of you. This is the awesome challenge of being a human being, is that each one of us needs to bring our riddle and solutions together within inside ourselves as an individuality. And I like that word individuality because it's from the Latin, means not divided in two. You've overcome duality. And it's this work, this fundamental work of transcending or uniting duality, as we're learning in the spiritual boot camp. They're calling them Shiva and Shakti, the masculine, the feminine, the upper, the lower, the active, the passive. Individuality means you're reconciling all the opposites, the tension of opposites, all the riddles and the resolutions come together in you. And that is the ultimate antidote, that is the ultimate answer for health and well-being. So the human personality is the major piece in the puzzle. We may not realize that, you may not have thought of that, but it's actually as plain as the nose on your face. Which may not be plain to you because, you know, you can't see your nose, but your nose on your face is pretty plain to me, and so is your personality. So just like we can't necessarily see our nose, we don't necessarily see our personality. We don't necessarily have a sense of who we are, and the way we come to that is how it's mirrored back to us from the outside world. Which is why I've been teaching people how to dyad, work in pairs, so we learn to mirror each other and get a sense of who we are, where we are on the map. Because if you don't know where you are on the map, you're not going to be able to travel to where you want to go. If you think you're in Ottawa, but really you're in Calgary and you're trying to get the White Horse, you're not going to be able to get there because you're not where you think you are. So, the personality, what is the personality? If it's the problem, if it's the puzzle piece. Here's a little misquote. Money is the root of all evil. You heard that one? Mm-hmm. Oh, then you've heard a misquote. Do you know where that comes from? Anybody know where that comes from? No? Nobody here knows where that quote comes from? Yes! Thank you. Must be from another generation.
Comes from a very poor and angry person.
Yeah. Well, it is from the Bible. It's a misquote of the Bible. Oh my gosh, let's not misquote the Bible. I mean, there's all sorts of changes and things in there anyways, but you don't want to misquote the good book. But in fact, it says, the love of money is the root of all evil. Not money. There's nothing wrong with money. You want to think that $5 bill look evil to you? Ah. I don't know, he might have been a nasty politician in his day. Nothing evil about money, it's just energy in another form. I mean, the bill itself is just paper. but the love of money. Where does the love of money exist? In the money? In the personality, in the people, in the attitude that they have towards it. So the root of evil is in the attitude of human beings. It's human attitude that is the root of evil and imbalance. So the root of problem is in the personality, the attitudes. Right down, one could say, to the physical aches and pains in your body that you go to the massage therapist to massage out. Oh yeah, let's get those pains out. Or emotional therapy, emotional releasing. Even right down to the cancers in our bodies could be traced back to the attitudes, the perspectives, the thoughts, if not of ourselves, maybe of those before us, those in our environment, giving rise to the increasing abnormalities and anomalies and aberrations in human health and well-being. And we should be evolving, we should be changing, we should be breaking out into greater personalities. As a matter of fact, Rudolf Steiner says that each human is going to evolve to be as different from one another as each animal species is going to be from one another. That's where we're heading. And he says, in not too distant future, what we hold in our souls and our being in terms of thoughts and feelings is going to be manifest in the physicality. And if you believe in reincarnation, as he did, you know, how you're going to come back in the next life will physically be an expression of what you cultivated and developed in your attitudes and personality in the previous lives. So there's, in terms of the duality, there's a balance here. We could talk about the personality at the center, and then what else is going on around as the periphery that affects the personality. Because there's things coming from the inside, and there's things coming from the outside. And in terms of the center, you have your experience of yourself, and in terms of an expansive sense of periphery, we could think of the solar system, the planets, and the zodiac, if you will, the circle of planets that holds us at the periphery, at the center, as an earth and the individuals here. And in waking up to that, we might say, hey, we are in a world becoming. Let's all say that together. We are in a world becoming. One more time, looking around. We are in a world becoming. Or, let's say it differently. We are a world becoming. We are a world becoming. One more time. We are a world becoming. Well, the first one, we are in a world becoming, is more objective. Because we're looking out and going, oh, we're in a world of becoming. We're waking up to this. But the second one is more subjective, where we're actually identifying with what we see on the periphery. We're actually saying, I am this world. I'm not just in it, but I am this world becoming. And the science that we have predominating our educational systems currently are much more towards the objective. There's much more of an objectification, distancing between you as a center and what's holding you on the periphery. And science is asking, as we wake up, well, what is this world we are in? what is this organism we're growing on? What is our relationship to it? It's like, there it is, and here is me. Here I am the scientist, and there is what I'm exploring in the lab. And asking this question, what is this thing of which we are an outgrowth on? Like an outgrowth on this thing. Are we parasitic to it? Are we synergistic with it? How do we get here? Are we planted here from some place in outer space? But when we speak more from the subjective and say, we are a world of becoming, we are actually not speaking on behalf of the earth. We are speaking as the earth. We're identifying ourselves as the earth, as the eyes, the ears, the nose, the taster, the voice of the earth. We're identifying ourselves as the intelligence of the earth. We are an extension of the brain. We are an extension of the heart and soul. And we are the extension of the will. Most importantly, the will. We are the appendages of the earth. And we have this mobility to move around, working in, on, and with the earth. We are the legs and the arms. So this is a new view. This is a new view that's emerging slowly in science. But science is kind of slow on these things because the word science actually means the cut. It comes from the original word skyer, cutting. It wants to cut things up, dissect it, categorize it, label it, everything's separate. Same with the word anatomy. Anatomy means to separate into different parts. And science is very good at that. It's able to break things down and let us look at the separate parts. But what's needed now is within ourselves as beings of the earth to put it back together in consciousness and understand what it is we're connected to. What is this organism that we are outgrowth of? As its intelligence, as its heart, as its will. And when we begin to live in accord with that spiritual science paradigm, it's going to be a new day for Earth. Looking at how did we come to be this planet becoming, this Earth becoming. We look around as scientists do and go, how did we come to be on this Earth becoming? And as spiritual scientists, we can say, how did we come to be this Earth becoming? Here as what we call human beings. Some people like to think that we were planted here. You've heard this? Yeah, from outer space. I like to say we've been planeted here. Yes. We've been planted here from outer space, in a sense, and held in the incubatory womb of the solar system within a galaxy. And that's not a far stretch from the material science paradigm. And if we delve into astrophysics a little bit, looking at how we've been planted here with the planets in our solar system, we'll notice that some of the planets are fiery, the sun. Some are more gaseous, some are more liquid, and some are more solid. Fiery, gaseous, liquid, and solid. And in fact, all of those qualities in the planets of our solar system are found here on this platform of life, which we call Earth, because we have the solid geosphere, we have the liquid hydrosphere, we have the gaseous atmosphere, and we have the thermosphere. So all the qualities of the planets that have planted us here are resident on Earth. And we also have those qualities in ourselves as well. You know, we look around the Earth, and there's the Earth, there's water, air, and fire. You probably know that rainbow song. Earth I am, air I am, water, fire, and spirit I am. Earth I am, air I am, water, fire, and spirit I am. Earth I am, air I am, water, fire, and spirit I am. Earth I am, air I am, earth I am, air I am, water, fire, and spirit I am. Water, fire, and spirit I am. So we have these elements. They're called the elements here on Earth and in our cells. And we see them in anything that's in a state of solid, liquid, gas, or thermal. The four elements as first identified by the mystical Greeks. And in fact, I don't think we should call this planet Earth, because it kind of negates the other elements. It shouldn't be called Earth. It should be called the Elemental Multiplex Consciousness Incubating Platform. Yes, the EMCIP. Yeah. I think, you know. Where are you from? I'm from the Elemental Multiplex Consciousness Incubating Platform. Thank you very much. Yeah, because then we're giving fair acknowledgement of all the other elements. Those different states of being, solid, liquid, gas, and thermal. Even the 118 elements, as they call them in the periodic table, there's 118 of them, some of them are synthetic, can all be boiled down to those four different states. They're either solid, liquid, gas, or combustible, thermal, depending upon the conditions in which they're in. So, we're looking at now the basis of how we came to be what we are. And looking at these elements as the fundamental building blocks, which include the 118 of the periodic table, we see that they've been built into the different kingdoms of nature. Right? What are the different kingdoms of nature that we share this Elemental Multiplex Consciousness Incubating Platform with? Yes?
Animalia. Plant something, I don't remember. Help me out, guys.
Right. Plant, animal.
Fungus.
Fungus is a plant.
Really? Bacteria.
Yeah.
Mineral.
Mineral. And us. Right?
Spiritual.
Well, we don't even have to get into that woo-woo stuff. Spiritual. You know, I mean, the kingdoms of nature is mineral, plant, animal, and human. Right? Did I miss anything?
What about bacteria? Is that animal?
Bacteria?
Yeah.
Well, bacteria, the original life form, that came out of the inorganic matter, is actually plant and animal, which is an interesting thing. The protozoas have the qualities of plant and animal. So we'll come back to that. That's an interesting point. I always wait to see if people go, oh yeah, what about bacteria? Because it's important. I mean, our bodies are made up of 90% or something of these other things other than us. Bacteria and other parasitical things. Yes?
I saw fungus, half animal and half plant.
Well, yeah, it depends on how far down you go into that kingdom. There is that crossover, yeah. Which makes it so interesting when we start to consider ourselves, which is where this is all leading, what we are, what we're composed of, and how to maintain it to the highest degree. So, looking at these four kingdoms just briefly, we see the mineral kingdom as the inorganic basis for life, out of which the plant kingdom has arisen and subsists upon the mineral kingdom. You need a plant in soil, and which is the element of earth, and it builds itself out of the element of earth. And how does that do that? What's the delivery system of the minerals into the plant body?
Water.
Water, thank you. Yes. So this is an interesting thing to note about this secondary life form that exists on top of the mineral kingdom. It builds itself out of minerals, but it has also embodied the element of water. And a plant's kind of got a liquidy state. A rock doesn't have that liquidy state, but a plant is built out of rocks, but it's got this liquidy state because it has this capacity to embody water. Then the next life form on the planet, what do you call it, the animalia? Animalia? Animalia. It exists off the plant, which exists off the mineral. And what could we say is the distinguishing aspect of this life form that has risen above the earth, above the plant, and yet depends upon it?
Mobility?
Mobility. Yes, because plants don't move around. They move, but they stay rooted, unless you're a tumbleweed. There's always exceptions to the rules, which makes it so beautiful. That's where that's where our power is understanding how to work with the rules, bend the rules, align with the rules. But following the sequence of the elements, the animals have developed this capacity to work with the air element. Just like plants developed the capacity to work with the water element. The animals have this relationship to air. Fish and aquatic beings, they don't breathe air. They learn to derive that out of the water. And then the lower amphibians crawled out and so forth and developed lung capacities and things to absorb from the air above the water. Some animals have learned to fly in the air. So we're seeing this evolution of life on this elemental multiplex consciousness incubating platform, developing greater degree to embody and work with the elements. So then there's us as another extension of the earth. Earth, plant, animal, human has this relationship to the final element of fire. That's a distinguishing thing that we have. We can create fire, we can start fires, we can warm ourselves. We're warm-blooded animals in a sense. If you look at the animals from the cold-blooded to the warm-blooded mammals, and physically we have that warmth, warm-blooded. thermal aspect. But not only is it a physical thing, because these elements all have a spiritual origin, so they all have a spiritual side, so as does fire. Fire is light. Fire is, you could even say love, but it is the light of consciousness that we have the potential for, that gives us even more of an edge than the animals, the plants, and the mineral kingdom, as extensions, as outgrowths of Earth. So this human, now we're going to look more on the human, focusing on the human as in the interweaving product of all that has gone before, right? Because not only do we have a mineral body, but we also have the capacity to work with liquid. We've got lots of liquid going on inside here, as do the plants. And then we've got this relationship to the air, with lungs, breathing, able to take in oxygen and prana, as can the animals. And then we've got this light of consciousness. And so you could say we're a composite of the mineral kingdom, the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, and as humans, we embody everything that's gone before. Now, how does that look? How does that break down? We actually have subtle bodies that are holding the qualities of these other kingdoms. So we've got the physical body. That's the most obvious, right? There's no denying you've got a physical body. Just pinch your neighbor. Yeah, see? He's got a physical body, right? Now this is where we get into the bit of the woo-woo stuff, because we also have an etheric body. Some could call it the chi body or the prana body, but this is the plant body. This is the body that is of a plant nature, the etheric body. And it's that etheric body that takes your physical body from being just an inorganic, lifeless corpse and gives it life, gives it movement, the way a plant does. What is it about a plant? A plant grows, a plant reproduces. So it's this etheric body that humans have that has this plant-like quality that allows the physical body to grow, to be alive, and to reproduce. So how do we know that there really is an etheric body? Because I don't want you to take it on faith from me. I want there to be some sort of experience of your etheric body. Well, as I said before, the etheric body is of a water nature, right? It's the plant body that's embodied that quality of water in it. And so we know water, for one thing, has memory, and it also responds to rhythm, right? You set rhythm into water, it will go. So that etheric body is actually the thing that stores the impressions and experiences you have in the world. And if you've ever, science thinks it's the brain stores memory, but it's actually the etheric body that stores your memories. And that's why, you know, sometimes if somebody touches you, you might have a memory. You might have a flashback of something because they've evoked an imprint that's there. Even those earworms that you get. You know what an earworm is? When you listen to music or a commercial on the radio and it's just going through your head over and over again. That's something that's been imprinted on the etheric body. So let's try that, just to give you an experience of imprinting something and then feeling the rhythm of it going on. We're just going to clap a rhythm with the hands over and over for a few times, and then we'll stop in silence and see if you can feel your etheric body continuing to the wash, the ripple of that going on. Okay, so everybody just do that gently. Stop. You want to get a sense of that etheric life force, just wanting to keep that wave going.
Still going.
So from a spiritual science perspective, that is the etheric body, the life body, the plant body that responds very well to rhythm, which is why that's a big key to health and well-being, is having rhythm in your life. And the periphery is trying to hold us in rhythm. Remember I said the periphery, the big periphery is our solar system. The planets, with their qualities of fire, air, liquid, and solid, they have a rhythm that has over eons produced us and life on Earth, and now as semi-conscious beings we need to learn how to work with that rhythm. You see, the rhythm is inherent there in nature, day and night. The day calls us into verticality, and the night leads us into horizontality. Even the month with the moon cycle has a big influence on the liquid nature, the etheric body. And women are particularly in tune with that because they, on a very physical level, experience a very liquid flow that's on this moon cycle through their moon cycle. So that's why we have basically developed a calendar that's in accord with the moon cycle, January, February, March, so that it holds us in a peripheral way to be in rhythm. Even the week, having the 7 days of the week, was initially established as from a sacred and mystical perspective to hold humanity, to hold society in a rhythmical way in accordance with the planets. And we've even named, the name was the Greeks and the Romans named the days of the week after the planets. So, Monday is Moon Day. Tuesday is Mardi in the French or the Latin. It's Mars Day. Wednesday is Mercury Day. Thursday is Jeudi, Jupiter Day. Friday is Venus Day. Saturday is Saturn Day. And Sunday is Sunday. So this aspect of rhythm is a very important part. That's why we start the sound circle, or the sound bath, the rhythmical sound bath. And it's not that hard to get into it. Once you get going, just following the beat kind of gets your your brain out of the way and let the etheric body absorb the rhythm, and then it's easy to just drum, be a percussionist. Moving on to the next body. What would that be? The next body of the human being, what kingdom would that correlate to?
Air. The air body?
Right, the air body, or the animal body. Right, because we've got the physical, that's the mineral body. We've got the etheric, that's the plant body. And so the astral body, we'll call it, correlates to the animal body. And this is the body of the personality. So when I started things off and saying, your personality is the problem, I'm really saying the astral body is the primary thing that humans need to be attending to and cultivating and refining and elevating to a higher level of being. It's the animal body, and just as we work with animals to maintain them and take care of them and maybe even help them evolve, we need to do that with that aspect of our own being. And the reason it's called the astral body, so it is, well, Jung called it the anima, or the animus, depending on whether masculine or feminine, because it's the body that animates us. It is the part that's animated as a personality. But the reason it's called an astral body is because that's the word for star. It's our star body, a star. And it's the body that's fashioned by the star configuration at the time of our birth. It's the body that has the imprint of how the planets and stars are aligned, as can be seen in your natal chart. So it's cast a certain way. Your personality, you could say, is cast a certain way depending upon the astrological omens. And that, you could say, is something we chose. You know, in the pre-birth, the pre-incarnation work, that we chose to incarnate at a particular time into a particular space to have particular riddles, to have, you know, the certain problems of the personality. It's all been imprinted in the template of your astral body. And the good news is that's the easiest body to work on. We know how hard it is to transform the physical body. You know, you can go to the gym and, like I did today, to get all kind of buff and that, you know, working it out. But it only, you know, you can only go so far. I mean, we're doing a lot these days to transform the physical body with sex changes and cosmetic surgery and things like that. But the astral body is this air body. And we know how air, it's even more erratic than water. Water, you know, like once water's flowing, it's hard to stop it. But air is even more malleable. So as is the astral body. And we're not necessarily bound to the way it's fashioned based on the star configuration when we're born. Now, to give you an experience of the astral body, the animating body, who's got a favorite food? Nobody? Yes, Paul, what's...
Pizza.
Ah, look at that. Did you hear his voice and see his mouth? Hey, he's laughing. Yeah.
Because that was everybody's favorite food.
Yeah. What kind of pizza is your favorite pizza?
The one with the mushrooms and the green peppers and then a little bit of pepperoni.
Okay. You got a favorite place to go?
Yeah.
Where?
You're in the junction. There's a place there.
Vesuvio's?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I know it. It's great. They've been around for years.
Yeah. Best pie in the town.
Best pie in the town. Yeah. See, look at that's the astral body You know, like we all got a little picture of Paul's personality. You know, when he started talking about pizza, best pie in town. And same with Laura. She was like, "Oh, that's funny," you know. Lit up. That's what makes you you. That's the astral body. Yeah, you know, like we really do have in ourselves an animal nature. You know, like people say, "Oh, our bodies are just animal bodies," but no, like this astral body, which is cast by the position of the planets in the zodiac. And zodiac actually comes from the word zodiac. It's the circle of animals. The zodiac is fashioning the astral body or the personality and making it, and so you can see that in people too. You know, some people are kind of like monkeys or squirrels, or some people are just like sloths. And, you know, some are like nippy little birds, always squawking at you. So, but we're not finished, because then there's this element of fire that, as we know, fire is kind of the most elusive. Fire's not going to be there unless it has something to land on, right? If you ever built a fire at a campfire, you got to have everything right. You got to have, you know, the earth element, which is the wood, and you don't want too much liquid in the wood, and there has to be enough space for there to be air around the wood, and then the fire will land. Well, same with the human being. The fire of consciousness is not going to land in us unless things are in balance in these other bodies. But when it does, that fire of spirit, of self, of ego, can come in, and that's the big problem I had with my first health crisis in my early 20s. As I said, it was like a botched initiation of self, because I was messing around with what they call strange fires of recreational substances and dabbling with black arts. I couldn't land my fire in my early 20s, which is when it should come in, because you've spent the first 21 years of life actually laying the fireplace. First 21 years you're laying the fireplace, you're developing your physical body, and this is what this chart is up here, this biography chart. The first 7 years your physical body's growing. It never grows more than it does in those first 7 years, so you're really bringing a lot of earth substance, and your mom knows that. She's like constantly breastfeeding you or shoveling pablum into your mouth, and those first 7 years it's the development of the physical. The second 7 years, from 7 to 14, it's the etheric body that's incarnating. This plant body, you're getting more into the upright. You know, that's what the plant body does. It makes things vertical, upright, growing up. And then and that starts when the change of teeth occurs. That's the marker. The change of teeth is indicating that the life body is coming in and taking you to the next level of maturity. So the head's changing and things are opening up for life to flow in you. And then at 14, the big physical marker is puberty, right? It's like this etheric body, this plant body has matured, and all of a sudden you got reproductive organs on the go. Well, you got reproductive organs, then you're going to want an animal on board, right? Which is the astral body. From 7 to 14, then the astral body is incarnating, and that's when you're developing your personality, right? And your intellect, and the way you talk, and the way you hang, and all that sort of stuff from 14 to 21. And at 21 is when that fire should land in the fireplace, the fire of self. And of course, there's things in the world that are going want to blow out that fire. You know, there are the dark forces that don't want light. And that's what happened to me. I got caught in a bad gamble with playing the devil's game, so to speak. and that fire couldn't land, and I had strange fires living in me. I had other things taking over my personality. It was a crazy time. So this fourth member, the ego self, and I say ego with a capital E because, you know, we need an ego. You need that self. That's the consciousness. You know, that's what makes you self-conscious. You're conscious of self because you have this egoic self. The astral body is not conscious of self. Animals are not really conscious of themselves. Right? They have a certain self-awareness, and they have a certain instinct that keeps them alert to what's bad and what's good in their environment. But they don't have an ego. At most, they've got an astral body. The human has this divine gift, this spark of fire, which is the name of the book I'm going to be looking at in 2 weeks. I'm doing a talk on Graham Hancock, his life and work, because he's coming to Toronto the following week. And so the talk's going to focus largely on his one book called The Divine Spark, which is about working with substances, entheogens, psychoactive substances, and how they have possibly catalyzed and instigated evolutionary development of consciousness. You know, quantum leaps forward when the caveman discovered mushrooms and ate them and went, "Wow, I'm awake. I am Earth." So that I just say that as a little side note because, yeah, this divine spark of the self has been assisted in the use of plant spirit assistance over the ages. And we'll look at how, you know, I'm going to talk more about that in this whole series about the effects of alcohol, nicotine, cannabis, and entheogens and other substances as we go up the ladder of the physical, etheric, astral, and so forth, to see how we can support and elevate health and well-being on all these levels. But the part that sits there and watches all this, the witness consciousness, if you will, is the self, and that's the thing that makes us unique. Personalities don't make you unique. You know, even back in the 60s when everybody was trying to be an individual and breaking out, well, they all kind of looked the same, you know, long hair and bell-bottom pants and flowers all over. So, you know, even though they were trying to all just be yourself, you know, they were all kind of looking the same after a while. And that's partly why the hippie movement in the 60s fell apart, because it still is about taking a handle of the self. And so how do we experience the self? How do you really experience yourself? As I said, there is this thing of self-awareness. But it's as easy as looking into your wallet to see how unique you are. Right? Just start looking at your cards in your wallet, and you realize, oh, you got all these unique numbers. You're the only person that's got that health card number. I'm the only person with that social insurance number. Man, I got SINs and PINs and barcodes, and they're all unique to me. So this is kind of, you know, the physical manifestation of the uniqueness of the self. Right? So when we talk about egotism, it's not really something of the ego self, it's actually a dis-ease of the astral body. That's why we keep saying the personality is the problem, because egotism, like chauvinism, these are aspects of a person's personality. You know, like sexism and stuff like that. These are things that can be shared within a group soul or a group astral body. Astral body is also interchangeable with the word soul. You know, when you talk about the human soul, it's really the astral body. When you talk about the human spirit, it's really the self, that unique, eternal part of you. The astral body is not eternal, and it's not unique. It comes from a group soul. Just the way animals all have a group soul. I know I'm covering a lot of material very quickly here, but this is things that we'll come back and revisit in the future, because these are the building blocks, terminology and concepts for looking at things within a spiritual science paradigm. One other point here about the bodies is that there's actually higher bodies beyond the physical, the etheric, the astral, and the self. And it's the job of the self to develop these higher bodies out of the lower bodies. This is the long-term evolutionary period vision, that over a long-term period we are going to be transforming our astral body. That's the first thing at hand. And then eventually we'll transform the etheric body, and eventually transform the physical body into a higher subtle body. The seed of those higher subtle bodies are in the lower bodies. That's why we got to get the fire of the self on stage, so it can start working consciously with the development of these lower bodies. To round it off, I would be remiss to not bring in one of my favorite fairy tales that kind of brings this all together into one glorious picture.
Can I guess which one it is?
Would you like to guess which one it is?
Yeah. No. Famous.
They call it the Bodies of Oz.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. The Bodies of Oz. Anybody here not know the story of the Wizard of Oz? Well, let me just give you like the quickie thumbnail sketch of the essential points. This girl, Dorothy, is thrown on this journey along the Yellow Brick Road, the Golden Path. And on this road of trials and tribulations, she encounters three characters. There is, what? Somebody help me here.
The lion.
The lion, fire.
And
The Tin Man.
Tin Man.
Scarecrow.
Scarecrow, right. The Lion, the Tin Man, and Scarecrow. Oh, how interesting, these three characters. And she's completely oblivious and naive to what they're about, and she's just trying to get back home. And she figures, oh, I'll bring them along and help them, because maybe the Wizard of Oz can help them as they'll help her. But look at, you've got one that's made of tin. Oh, mineral kingdom. Then we've got one who's a straw man, plant. And then we've got the third one, who is a lion, an animal. There's the three kingdoms upon which the human rests. We've got the mineral kingdom, got the plant kingdom, and the animal kingdom. We've got the physical body, we've got the etheric body, and we've got the astral body. So here's Dorothy, quite spiritually naive at the beginning of her journey, bringing these guys along, who in fact end up being her assistants. They become the vehicle through which, well, first of all, they save her bacon when she's captured by the wicked witch and facing most certain death. They rescue her from that, and then they help her to complete her initiatory task of taking the broom of the wicked witch back to the Wizard of Oz as he requested, so he would then help her complete her journey. So that is an interesting allegorical picture of all of us needing to gather up and work with our physical body, the Tin Man, the etheric body, the Scarecrow, and the astral body, the Lion.